I don't have, perfect. Thank you, everyone. I don't have any slides. I was asked last week to join, so last minute ad. Thank you, Chris, for having me. I really appreciate it. Today, I'm going to be talking about advancing your career in cybersecurity through technology. If anyone has any questions, please throw them up in the chat. And if you can't hear me, let me know and I can speak a little louder. Okay. My name's Angelique Napoleon. I go by Q. I am currently a solutions director and cyber capability lead at General Dynamics IT in Washington, D.C. I've been working in the cyber field in IT for a little over 26 years. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it has. One of the things that I've prided myself in is currently reinventing. I'm always reinventing my skills and reinventing myself for whatever job it is I'm trying to chase. I've worked in intelligence, I've worked in defense, commercial, I've worked in the automotive cybersecurity field and doing pen testing for oil fields and other energy related folks. I don't go into details with my clients, but going back to what Chris wanted me to talk about with advancing your career, I think a lot of it comes into play where we start looking at our backgrounds. Right now, there's a rush to get people into the cybersecurity field, and a lot of people don't have that the right background. I think we're trying to fill square pegs with round holes with square pegs. I apologize. It's been a long day. We are not seeing the right type of people, I feel, in cybersecurity. We need to look at their background. We need to look at the skill set that people bring. For me personally, and I know Chris wanted me to talk personally about what I've done, I'm a big reader. I'm a big person in going back to school, taking classes, taking courses. Vendors offer free training all the time. AWS, Azure are always offering free training, especially if you're in the military. There are a number of training outlets for you at no cost. And a lot of those are available to civilians as well. Homeland Security offers a lot of good free training to bring people up to speed, whether you're running a business or you're working in the IT field. Definitely take advantage of those avenues for your training. For me, I've taken a lot of commercial training. I've invested in myself. I wish I could tell you that the training was free, but it's not. There has to be some investment. For me in cybersecurity, it's making those relationships and those inroads with the vendors and with my friends. A lot of them have taught me a lot of really cool things. One of my really good friends, Aaron Lax, has done a great job in sharing what he knows with the community. And I'm a big proponent of sharing information as well within the cyber community, whether it's tools, training, documentation, templates, because that seems to be the really hot thing in cybersecurity right now, is how to share that information. And that's one of the things that Aaron has done really good with, and I'm trying to help him out as well, spreading the word. So for me, I think that's a big thing, making those communities stronger within cybersecurity for advancing your career, or especially in cyber. And for me to advance my career in cyber, I went from a system administrator all the way into the C-suite. I've been a CIO, a CTO, and a virtual CISO. And I've had to learn different things at different phases in my career. So when you're a system admin, it was all about learning the basics, how to administer Windows, Linux, doing a lot of other weird things with HP OpenView. Though I said I've been doing this 26 years. So when I started, we still had VAX systems. We had the reel-to-reel system, if you can fathom that. We used to hang tape, and we had they look like 8-track tapes. So it was learning how to work in those systems. And then as technology progressed, if I wanted to continue in this field, I had to invest in myself. I was fortunate enough that my employers paid for my education, and the Air Force, having served in the Air Force, I used my GI Bill to get certifications and finish up some degrees. So there are definitely different avenues to go down for different things. Working with some training groups like ISC Squared and ISACA, keeping my physical security, my personnel security training up to date. I went into different areas of cybersecurity, so it wasn't just working with computers. I learned to vet people through the government to get security clearances, constructing facilities, working overseas. I had worked for approximately 10 years overseas doing cyber and physical as well as intelligence work. So it's been an interesting ride to go in different directions, most definitely. So let's see, we've got some comments here. Yes, Carmen Marsh provides a great nonprofit training and certification for women. I'm also a member of the Cybersecurity Divas, and we do something similar to Carmen, where we're bringing in women and minorities into cybersecurity, and we cover training, mentorship, as well as the cost of certification. So if you're interested, please check us out at www.cybersecuritydivas.com. For the transition for a lot of people into cybersecurity, when you're new, I think right now we have a lot of gatekeepers sitting in some of these organizations, and they restrict the training, they restrict people coming in. We really do need fresh meat. We need, and I don't mean that in a mean way. You need new talent. We need people to come in and look at how we do things a little bit differently. Oh, Omar's got a question. Yes, sir.
No, I was clapping for you.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I'm not familiar with a lot of the emojis except the poop one, which I thought was a hat. Sorry, I'm that old. But yeah, back to what I was saying, bringing in new talent. When I was coming up through the ranks, I was lucky enough to be mentored by some really brilliant people. I started my career at the Department of Energy when I got out of the Air Force, and I was working for a small company who felt that it wasn't a my rice bowl mentality, but that we had to share everything with everybody. So in a small business, I had to learn to be IT, program management, to back up the CEO, to work with the clients over at the Department of Energy. We had the Sandia and Los Alamos contracts. So it was learning to work with different people and learn from them. I never thought that I would come in and know everything. And I think that's one of the best things that we have back in the day. I try to do that today with the people that I mentor. I don't believe in being that rice bowl person or a gatekeeper. I believe that everybody on my team has the ability to lead, whether they're going to replace me or they're going to go above me. And I love when people go above me. I've mentored some really fantastic people who today are presidents and CISOs, they're directors at different companies. And when they started out, they didn't know how to, they just knew how to log in. They took the cybersecurity awareness. And I think that, you know, they got through their career because they had someone who believed in them, just like someone believed in me. They took the time and they said, this is what you need to do. This is your roadmap. Because at the time, cyber didn't exist when I got out of the military and I left active duty in 1998 and I became a reservist. I was working with other people and they said, this is what you need to do. So we went from sysadmin to a DBA, to a web developer, to a information assurance analyst, and then an engineer. And I saw that there was an opportunity to influence. These are the type of things that we need to do as far as training. When I took my first CISSP certification, I had one of the lowest numbers that they had. I've held it that long, and then eventually I let that go for other certifications. Al just posted, yes, FR Secure is doing a free CISP bootcamp. There's also ISC Square, who's offering a free certification for a limited time called Certified in Cybersecurity. Please check it out. It's free. ISC Squared never gives anything away for free, so take advantage of it while you can. Thanks, Al, for sharing that. There's a lot of good resources out on LinkedIn. If you're interested, please connect with me. I'm happy to share any of my resources with anybody who's interested in learning, or if you're looking to be mentored, please hit me up. I love to help grow people as much as possible, and I'm willing to invest as much time as you're willing to invest. So going back to how our careers have changed over the years, with the gatekeepers that we have now, I don't want people to be discouraged. I've been mentoring a lot of people who said, I keep applying and I'm not hearing anything. Whether you're a senior person like myself or you're a junior person entering into the cybersecurity field, don't lose hope. Retool your resume for the jobs that you're looking for. Make sure that you address the requirements. If it's something that says you need 15 years of experience, you've only worked in cyber for maybe a year or two, keep that in mind. I always do a cover letter, even with my resume. I may go after something that requires CEO experience or something that requires a lot larger platform than I've ever managed. Don't be afraid to step out and try something new, but also let them know that you're willing to be mentored by someone who maybe is in the position or who has done the position and is willing to share that information and skills with you. Oh, Omar, thanks for sharing that. Cyber skills to work, free for transitioning service members and veterans and first responders. There's also SkillBridge if you're a veteran and you're on this call. What SkillBridge is a mentorship opportunity within private industry. So we have companies like Ford, Intellectex, General Dynamics. A lot of big companies and small companies have gotten together and said, we're looking for IT and cyber people. And you can also go down a program management track. I highly encourage people to take advantage of these great mentorship programs that they didn't have when I got out of the military. We relied on a friend of a friend who said, hey, so-and-so is hiring. I think a lot of that still goes on, but with the trend in tech layoffs that we've seen here in the past few weeks, I think it's important to grow your network. Make sure that you're always connecting with people on LinkedIn. I take 20 minutes a day and I try and make at least 5 new friends a day. They're in different industries, but they're still, for me, they're still within cyber, they're in the executive realm, because I want to grow that circle and I want to learn from different people. I've never claimed to know everything in cyber or management or any of the other tasks that I've ever been blessed to do. So don't be afraid to reach out to some of these people. I love it when people have no connections and they're looking to make a new one. Again, don't be the gatekeeper. Definitely connect with people, go into different groups. For the cybersecurity insiders, Aaron Lax has a great group of folks, and you can learn from some of the brightest minds in industry, and they're not afraid to share their knowledge. That's what I love about our chats on LinkedIn and the connections that we make. We have some of, the way I said, the brilliant people who are doing quantum, they're doing cybersecurity. I handle Homeland Security and Defense and Intelligence. So there's just a lot of different ways we can help each other out. For me, mentorship has been a big deal. That's what's helped get me to where I'm at. I had program managers and presidents and vice presidents along the way who have helped bring me along in my path. I can't say that I've done this all by myself because I wouldn't. In our field, it is about who you know. Oh, Chris, thanks for sharing, supporting the whole cyber human initiative. If you go to https://wholecyber.org, you can get more information. Thank you for sharing that, Chris. There's a lot of courses, like I said, for veterans, for first responders, and for anyone who's looking to get into cybersecurity. Reach out. Don't be afraid to ask those questions and learn. Even for those of us that are senior people, I'm finding I'm always having to pick up a book. I'm always having to learn a new skill. And I think it's great. I'm a learner. I believe in being a lifelong learner. Did someone have a question? Nope. Okay. Thanks, Omar. You're sharing some really good research, or not research, I'm sorry, hyperlinks here in the chat. Definitely check out the chat if you get a chance. For DoD, we have a system called TWIMS. It's run by the Navy. Again, if you're active duty, you can go in and you can get some really good training. For those of you who are not government, but you're interested in getting some free training, fedvte.gov has over $50 million worth of training in various cyber tracks. So if you're looking at becoming a incident responder in a SOC, or you want to be a virtual CISO, maybe you want to be a system security engineer and you're really technical, but you're looking to make that jump from a sysadmin out into something more complex, definitely check it out. Homeland Security has invested a lot of money. Thanks, Omar, for sharing the link. Register. If you're looking for a sponsor, hit me up. I'm more than happy to sponsor people. I don't know if there's a limit, but let's find out. Let's get as many people as we can into these training tracks. They offer the CBTs, they give you all test prep, but they will not pay for the test. Hopefully you can get a sponsorship. If not, we've got a lot of good organizations that are nonprofit and they're helping people regardless of your age, your race, your service affiliation. They'll help you get the certifications that you need. Again, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to share my resources with anyone who's interested in coming into cybersecurity. For me, this has been one of the most fulfilling jobs that I've ever had. I'm excited every day I get up. It's a brand new adventure. What's it going to be? The breaches, I think, for me have been one of the most interesting things that I've had to deal with in my career to see where we've dropped the ball. And I say we, the collective we, the cybersecurity community, where people are using, Tracy mentioned it at the end of her speech, we're using the same password for everything. We have to get better at communicating the requirements, the training, spreading that knowledge, and it comes through taking the time to go through some of the training that's available to our folks. Some of the senior folks only know one track. I work with a lot of cybersecurity policy people. They're only good at writing policy. They don't have that technical background. And I've told them, if you want to take your career to that next level and you want to stop complaining about having to write risk management framework packages, or you're tired of writing rules and regulations for your organization, most definitely take a course, take something that's going to help you elevate your career to that next level. I believe that hands-on is one of the things that our career field is lacking. We get a lot of people who are good at theory. You may have a master's in cybersecurity, but if you've never actually worked with the tools, it's only in theory. So don't be afraid to step out and learn some of those new skills, but take the hands-on lab. AWS has some fantastic free labs that you can take to familiarize yourself and learn the cloud. That's going to be the future. Quantum computing is going to be the future, and it's going to take a lot of training for us senior folks, our old dogs on the road, to figure out where it fits in and how that training, where do we make the time, and at what point do we stop learning? Right, Aaron, 100%. And AI is coming. It's learning the ML with machine learning, making sure that you understand the risks associated for implementing these technologies within your organization, making sure that you are comfortable with that technology. For a lot of us, we work with things and folks aren't comfortable. I've worked with cloud engineers who really didn't like what they did, but they did it because that's what paid the bills. So make sure you like what you do. For me, one of my favorite positions that I've had in 26 years was working at the DoD Cybercrime Center, or DC3, where I was the mission lead for cybersecurity. It was one of the most humbling positions I've ever had. And I think that one of the things that I take away from there was working with the law enforcement community. I think it's humbling to see the work that we did. We supported NMIC, or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. We helped do investigations. We did everything from cybercrime to porn investigations. So it was really fulfilling. I think we all need that one job in our career where we can look back and we say, that was my aha moment. That was where I got to give back. I think a lot of times when we're in our positions, we don't really look at what we're doing as a job. If you enjoy what you do, great, you're blessed. For a lot of us, we go to work day in, day out. You don't have that fulfillment. And I think we're seeing a lot of that with cybersecurity people. I'm seeing a lot of my friends leave industry to go do other things that are fulfilling. You can make cybersecurity, believe it or not, fulfilling. It's not all boring. It's not all policy and procedure, cyber awareness training, or locked accounts and doing investigations on people who clicked the link. You can make your job whatever it is that you want. You can be the best at what you do. If you are doing investigations, be the best at what you do. Make sure you know the regulations, the industry standards, and just keep applying those throughout your career. For me, within cybersecurity, though, I said it's a constant learning. It's something that I have prided myself on doing for years. And I appreciate everybody who's definitely sharing. Omar, you're sharing some really good resources. D4Diva has some really good pen testing and digital forensics and incident response training modules. I take a lot of their refresher courses because we forget. As we get older, you think you remember and you know it all, but you don't. And I'm not afraid to say that I take a lot of refresher courses just to keep up. Policies and procedures change, investigative methods and procedures also change. So keeping up on the latest industry standards, I think, is important in our job. In cybersecurity, it's like you have to be this lifelong learner, and you also have to have a good sense of humor. I think for me, that's what's carried me through some of the most challenging positions that I've been blessed to hold, is having that sense of humor and not being afraid to laugh at some of the really bad days and share that sense of humor with the people that I work with. When I mentor and I train people, the first thing I tell them is I'm a real smarty pants. So don't take anything I say to heart. I want you to learn. And sometimes the best way to learn things is to fail. within cybersecurity. A lot of us have been doing this a long time. A lot of us started out as system administrators, so we understand the back end of a network, but a lot of our new folks don't. Let's see. Thank you for your tips. Cisco Networking Academy. Yes, Al. They have the Cisco Networking Academy is fantastic. They're offering a track now in cybersecurity. So your CCNA has a split with a cybersecurity track. If you are a network engineer and you want to come into the cybersecurity field doing something different or maybe even related, that's a great avenue. They offer some good training. Al, I don't know if they charge for it. It used to be free if you held a current CCNA. It's been a while. I've let mine lapse. For Ron, yep. How can we improve? So Ron Warmer, thank you for your question. How can we improve how we speak to the different cybersecurity constituents, techies, PMs, CISOs, and business leaders? One of the biggest challenges I've had is communicating risk and risk avoidance and risk acceptance to the C-suite. Having sat in the C-suite as a vice president, CISO, and CITO, I think that we don't communicate the risk. It always comes across as Chicken Little. And when I say Chicken Little, everyone says the world is falling. Oh my gosh, we have this vulnerability and we're going to melt down and the end of the world is going to happen in 15 minutes. It's how you present the risk and the impact to the organization or the impact to your clients. Always address the cost. How much labor do I need? And if you don't know, don't be afraid to pull in a group of people. The way you solve a problem is by bringing in more people. You won't always have the answers to everything. So don't be afraid to ask a PM who's got some familiarization with the client's requirements or even the client's environment. Pull all those people together and that's how you're going to communicate risk. For a lot of companies, they didn't invest in cybersecurity. That's a fact. We're seeing it today. They took shortcuts in software development. They took shortcuts in enterprise development infrastructure. And it shows because when we see hackers come in, they look for a weak spot and they pick and they pick and they pick at that scab. And before you know it, that's how they get in. For a lot of the technology that we're using, we have to take the time, and again, take the time. There's this rush to get things done. Take your time and look at where your vulnerabilities are, and don't be afraid to communicate those to your PMs and even to the other people within your organization. I've seen a trend where chief financial officers are holding the bag for the cyber risk, which is interesting because he cares about cost. So when you communicate risk to someone, who manages cost, don't be afraid to give them the true cost. Don't over butter something, oh, it's going to be cheaper to do this. Give the full picture. And I think that's going to help communicate risk and how we buy down that risk within the enterprise. Ron, I hope I answered your question. Chris, if only vulnerability has a theme song and a logo. I think it does, Chris. I think for me, I hear the bear on the unicycle juggling running chainsaws. That's what it feels like some days when we're working in vulnerability management. And sometimes you catch the chainsaw and sometimes the chainsaw catches you. But most definitely sense of humor. Theme song, logo. We're seeing a lot more humor in our field that we didn't a long time ago, even up to pre-COVID time. I think COVID allowed us to get a sense of humor, get a little closer via Zoom or Teams, but we're getting a little bit closer, and don't be afraid to laugh. For me, the way I said, that's the dancing bear on the unicycle juggling chainsaws is definitely how I manage vulnerability and my incident response investigations, because I think that people should know better, but they don't. Tracy brought up some really good points in her talk before me about communicating and making cyber awareness training useful to your group. For me, that's one of the challenges, is how do you keep that cybersecurity awareness training fresh without boring the crap out of people? I personally like to give real life stories. I always omit the names of clients or organizations where I've worked, but I've seen some real doozies. My favorite to date has to be people who work with safes, and on the ceiling they had written the combination to the lock and they couldn't understand how things were missing out of that safe. So it's applying common sense, which I think is a superpower these days. But most definitely having that sense of humor. Does anyone else have any questions? I think I've addressed everything in the chat.
Recommendations for getting into government agencies if you've only been in the private sector?
Great question. So right now, the government, especially CESA, is having a big hiring spree. So if you are going to a university, look for days where people like the FBI, the CIA, NSA, they all have college industry days where they come out to universities and they do recruitment, and they'll be taking applications or resumes, and you go into a different track as if, you were already cleared. You would go to the front of the line for a lot of these organizations that are looking to hire. If you are interested in coming into the government side of the house, I always recommend contracting. Working for a contractor for me has been like working for the mafia. There's really no retirement plan, but it lets you test the waters to see if you want to work for that organization long-term and transition into a federal role. A lot of organizations will have hiring job fairs. I'm in the Washington, D.C. area, so we have a lot of hiring fairs. I definitely would recommend putting your profile out on LinkedIn. From time to time, NSA and DHS and CISA will have hiring events, and they'll announce them via LinkedIn. Don't be afraid. Reach out to some people who you'll find. You'll do a keyword search on LinkedIn for the CISO of NSA. Don't be afraid to reach out to them or to one of their training groups, but definitely try. I do the try before you buy, because there are some organizations that just don't meet my personal requirements, I guess the nice way to say. My personality and theirs don't always match. So let's see, what else do we have? Yes, going to social tech events. If you have the opportunity to go to Black Hat or any of the AFCEA events, there's a lot of ISACA and ISA events as well. That's a great way to hook up with some of the defense contractors side of the house, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, GDIT. We all attend the same events. Don't be afraid to drop off your resume. And yes, Erin, most important, networking is so important. Reach out to those people in industry. Don't be afraid to reach out. Though I said every day I make 5 new friends, and they're in industries that I typically don't operate in, like academia or oil and gas. Keep your connections fresh, and don't be afraid to ask their advice. What do you think? How do you think I should go about getting into this field? For me, working on the government side has been eye-opening. One of my favorite sides, though, to work on is commercial. I'm not limited to who I can discuss things with, which is a nice advantage. I get to meet people from around the world. So for me, commercial has worked out really well. In defense, it's still a challenge in changing the way people think, the mindset. We're still operating, as if we're 2000. So any other questions?
And for those that might be a little bit grayer in the hair, any recommendations there?
I'm hiding the grays. Again, keep your skills fresh. Look at how you can ascend. You don't have to stay a technical person forever. For me, I've accepted that my next role, I would love to sit again in the C-suite. So look at that CISO job, that CIO job, the CTO job. Look at how you can be a consultant. Look at how you can share your knowledge, either teaching in academia or even just being, a cyber awareness consultant, I think would definitely help. Kevin, you're going to a cyber event in March. Yeah, it's always good. I agree, Kevin. It's so good to put yourself out there. For a long time working in the government, I was not allowed to speak at certain conferences, but that's why I like the government or the commercial side of the house, because I get to meet different people and speak at different events. You can hide the grays. Yes, Omar, we can hide the grays. Thank God for hair dye in a box, $3 and it's gone. But definitely look at different roles in an organization, whether it's a director role or moving into that supervisor mentor role. For us, it's a challenge, at a senior level to keep fresh. So it's important for us to network. It's important for us to learn from each other. Chris, I think these events are great because we learn so much. I loved Tracy's, I love Malik's talk earlier. that's how we're going to share our information, because our time is limited. As we got older, we have different commitments. Did I remember to drink enough water? Did I remember to eat lunch and dinner? And, we have so many other priorities, families, kids, job, hobbies, and it's kind of hard to squeeze in learning a new technology. For me, I'm trying to squeeze in, how do I incorporate what I know into the quantum field? How do I bring that knowledge and share that once I know enough to be dangerous? How do you share that and get community buy-in for some of my programs and projects that I want to work? So it's always a challenge. And I think it's just making that time, whether it's an hour a day or 10 minutes a day, invest in yourself and invest in your career. Kevin, yes, always tell everyone to be on LinkedIn and put yourself out there. No one knows who you are if you don't say anything. Kevin, that is the best advice. I try and post frequently, not as much as I'd like to. Again, trying to do all of those things in life that we call adulting. But most definitely make LinkedIn part of your daily ritual, whether it's 15 minutes or 30 minutes when you're sitting there. Reach out to people, join new groups, meet people, go to conferences. Now that COVID's, I guess, officially over and we're starting to meet again and we're starting to hold conferences, definitely go to a few, at least 2 or 3 a year. Erin, it's Friday, yes. So are there any other questions or comments?
How do you prevent burnout with all that learning that you're doing?
Oh, good question. So I went through burnout last year. I was convinced that I wanted to work at Jelly Belly as a jelly bean tester, but as a diabetic, I guess that's not a smart career move. So you're always challenged with keeping your head straight. Mental health for me is really important, and I always put my job first. I would work long hours. It wasn't unheard of for me to work 20 to 24 hours. Believe it or not, I can work days at a time and then crash. It's important to take a step back. Your organizations give you time off. That time off it shouldn't be to go to more computer conventions or to sit down and catch up on your LinkedIn or update your resume. That's your mental health. That's the time that you should spend with your family, your friends, do things that make you happy. For me, this is what makes me happy. I love, the way I said, to mentor. I love to work as a consultant and help organizations either meet federal compliance or take them to the next level with FedRAMP. But I realized that I was burning myself out. I was working a full-time job that was 60 hours a week and then mentoring. At one point, you have to step back and you have to put different priorities in place. So I made it a point that once a month, I take one day off and that's my day. I go to the spa. Exactly. We're not a robot. You're right, Kevin. Use your PTO. I didn't. I always sold it back or I donated it to people who were sick. And the one thing that I found when I was burnt out, I was actually sitting in a hospital bed and I had been there for a week because I didn't take care of my diabetes. So I think it's really important to take that time off, take the day. For me, I take a day and I just go to DC and I go to museums or I do things that are for me. Believe it or not, even going to the grocery store is like the best trip for me because it's the one thing I don't have to worry about a vulnerability or an exploit or doing an investigation. Omar, with what you know now, what would be beneficial for you to know when you first got started? I think for me, and I hate to admit this, I was a know-it-all. I used to buy those big MCSE books and I would buy the big CIS books and I made sure I knew them inside and out. And I think if I took the time to close my mouth and listen to some of the senior people and listen to their horror stories, I probably would have been further along in my career because I was one of those people who insisted on stepping on the landmine to prove that I could survive. So I think for me, if I would have just shut up and listened a little bit more, taken some notes and listened to the people who are trying to offer me survival skills, I think I would have been further along in my career. Alex, cyber engineers tend to be the never complain and never explain type. Yes. How do you know when your current work situation has started to become toxic? It's Alex, I think my opinion, your toxic environment kind of lends itself to your health. If you look in the mirror and you're not happy with the job that you're doing and it feels like getting up on Monday isn't exciting anymore and you're tired and you just are not excited to go to work, then maybe it's time for a new gig. For me, I love new beginnings, and I've worked a lot of places. I've got a 6-page resume and it shows. There are some places I've stayed 3 years. There's some places I've stayed a year. I look at what is it that makes me happy. So you're right, Alex, for cyber engineers, though, I don't forget that you can write your own ticket because you're highly technical and you've been able to touch different parts of an enterprise. You are blessed to try different things. Do what makes you happy. Don't be afraid to step out. For me, I was always afraid to step out of government and go into something different until I saw, I said the job ad for Jelly Belly, and that they were looking for a cyber engineer. When work isn't fun, it's time for something new. Most definitely. Erin, what would you change in cybersecurity since you missed? What would I change in cybersecurity? I've been lucky enough that I've worked with some fantastic people who have changed cybersecurity. I worked with some organizations that helped stand up the cybersecurity programs for universities so that we could start pipelines. I think one of the things that I missed out was actually taking advantage of some of that training and going through some of these degree programs to make sure that they really are delivering what they say they are. I don't want someone to waste $40,000 or $50,000 on a bachelor or master's degree in cybersecurity, and it's not worth it. So I think, Erin, for me, that's one of my biggest regrets, is not taking advantage myself of the training, because I am always doing the work. And now I take a step back and I take some of those training courses and I give my honest feedback, and hopefully it makes it better so that someone doesn't go waste their time. Cecilia, my God, don't step on a landmine. Yep, that was me. I've made a lot of mistakes in my career, but I've also grown. And I think that in order to grow in our careers, we need to make those professional mistakes. And I'm not afraid to tell people I've made some really big doozies, but I've learned from them. And I tell the people that I mentor, you're going to make mistakes. It is not the end of the world. And I think for the Gen Zers, I think that's the new generation, it's hard to remind them that the world did not end because you made a mistake. You move on, you accept it, you work through it, and you tell others, because your life is going to be somebody else's survival guide. Chris, how do you deal with the grass is always greener on the other side? We're seeing a lot of that, especially in defense. People left us to go to Amazon, go to Google. I've done it a few times because I thought the grass was always greener. And my dad actually told me a saying. He said, when the grass is always greener, just remember it took more manure on that side of the fence to make it that green. So it didn't get there by itself. And it takes some investment on you to make your bad situation a little bit greener. So Kevin, is it true that IT people hate printers? Yes, we hate printers. And I hate patches too, and Windows 11. I love you, Omar. I love your little beach. Yeah, Chris has been playing Bob Marley in the background. And I joked, I said I should have made a margarita for this this session. It would have gone a lot smoother, and I probably would have given some way different non-political correct answers. But
Bob Marley reference was back to a printer that we had in a former organization. We called it Bob Marley because it always be jamming.
oh my gosh, yes. But I've noticed, a lot of IT organizations have gotten rid of like the single printer, and they go to the monster Xerox, which is even worse because it's got a hard drive and it's usually possessed by Satan. I knew an IT guy who used to light a candle every Friday on the printer just to make sure that it worked over the weekend. Kevin, thanks for sharing. I did not know that Windows 10 is being supported till 2025. In one of my organizations that I support, they rolled out Windows 11, and it was kind of like going down a racetrack with no seatbelt. It's been interesting to find where the start button is. I love it. Omar, y'all come down for a visit to Florida. Florida's growing. There's a lot more tech and cyber work moving to Florida. There are some places in the country, when I'm mentoring people, I call them cyber deserts, where there isn't a lot of work out there, either government or commercial. You point out the obvious ones like North Dakota and South Dakota, but I always tell people, don't be afraid to grow your own position somewhere, and don't be afraid to start your own business. In cyber, there are a lot of experts in a lot of things, and a lot of organizations need different skill sets. Don't be afraid to start your own thing.
If you were to start over, what area, which field would you go into with all different fields we have today?
I think I would have focused more on the forensics. I really like doing the digital forensics. I would have probably been the Abby Shudo. That was one of the big reasons I went to support NCIS, was because I thought I could get the 96-ounce kapow and I could work long hours wearing really cool spike jewelry. But I think I would definitely do a job for fun. When I was offered a position at Ford to design Mustangs, I passed on it because of money. And I think that that's one of my biggest regrets, was not taking a job for fun, but I did things out of comfort. That's why I stayed in defense. So don't be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone. Don't be afraid to try something different. And now that I'm older and I'm not afraid, I want to go try different things. I want to go work with different people. What other questions do you guys have?
So if you had to try other things, which of those areas would you recommend for others that you see are growing and needing a lot more people in?
I think we need a lot more people familiar with true DevSecOps, people who understand applications development. We're going to need people in quantum computing. They're going to need to understand vulnerabilities and exploits, infrastructure engineers, people who understand financial operations and fintech, how it affects an organization, program management, because a lot of times cyber people are like little kids. We just run off. If we don't have supervision, God help all of us. We're going to try and save the world and harness the sun, one patch at a time. So yeah, Erin, you're right. Data science, AI, machine learning. We're seeing organizations starting to find people that don't have the skills that we need. What has Kevin got? I think we have a major disconnect with the hiring managers and the HR job requirements. Yes, you are so right, Kevin, especially with entry level. They want an entry level person with 5 years or 10 years experience, and they want to pay them $40,000. And you need a master's degree or PhD with a CISP, ISACA. I mean, we could keep going on with the list. I see it, my organization and others that I've worked in. Be realistic. Don't be afraid to pull the HR manager. One of the best HR managers that I worked with was at Intellectex. And Ms. Jacobs would sit down and say, tell me the truth. Tell me what I need to find the right person. I don't want to waste my time and I don't want to waste theirs, because it costs money to go down a rabbit hole and bring you the wrong candidate, only to find out that someone like me is not going to work for $45,000 a year, freezing my tush off in North Dakota. We have to also educate those, yeah, Kevin, 5 years, exactly. You can't even get the CISP if you don't have 5 years. We have to somehow educate the HR community and the business, the hiring managers, as well as the executives, that if you would like steak, you have to pay for steak. Ramen noodles might not meet the needs. And when your organization gets breached, don't be shocked. And that's something I tell a lot of my clients. Don't be shocked. You hired ramen noodles, but you really needed steak, or you even needed a hot dog, but you showed up with a candy bar. Be realistic, pay people what they're worth, and they're going to stay. Give them respect, give them a place that they want to come to work every day. Someone had asked earlier about a toxic environment. IT and cyber tends to be toxic after a while. And I think a lot of it is our own doing, because we become bitter, we become tired and frustrated, and we carry that over. Can you say it louder for the people in the back? Yes. Amen. It's hard to find cybersecurity, and I know what you're talking about, Omar. It's hard when you're looking for a job and you're looking in cybersecurity. I always tell people to be patient, but patience only lasts so long because you have bills to pay. And I get it. We in the community need to get better at educating HR and hiring managers, and we need to make sure that they understand There's taking advantage of someone, asking them for 45,000 a year is probably not a good thing, especially if you're requiring them to get a certification. And you read the CISP annual report, and it says that the average person with a CISP is making 110,000 a year. I know when I read those, I laugh and say, not in every industry and not in every job that I've ever applied with. Kevin, you're not a hiring manager. I'd rather hire someone who has the willingness to learn versus someone who's a jerk. Yes. One of my mentors in a previous life told me, I can show you skills, but I can't show you how to be nice. That's something that has to come from the heart. And that's something that I've learned over the years. Don't be a jerk. Nobody wants to work with a jerk. And we need to give people a chance. You're right, Kevin. We do need to give new people a chance. People coming out of college, people who didn't go to college, because I'm telling my son who's going to college, it's not for everyone. There are just some people who didn't do well in school, but they're really technical or they're really smart. Don't be afraid. You can pick up in an interview in the first 2 or 3 questions whether or not that person is an organizational fit. Don't be so hung up on these rigid requirements for experience. I think people have this unrealistic expectation of a PhD who's going to work for nothing, long hours. That almost sounds like an indentured servant. It doesn't sound like an employee. So don't be afraid to take that chance on someone who's not the perfect fit. I've done it with a few people, and today they're very successful. They don't have college degrees. I had one man who had a learning disability and he couldn't pass a certification test, to save his life, but he is one of the most brilliant digital forensics experts I have ever met. So don't be afraid to take that chance on someone. I always do. I love to gamble with people because they're the seeds that you're going to plant, and you've got to water them and you've got to love them just like your house plant. So let's give people a chance. Kevin. Yeah, I agree, Kevin. It pisses me off too when people say you have no experience or you don't have relevant experience. You're right. If you're a veteran, you definitely have delegation. We were great at passing the buck to the next lowest rank. Everyone has the opportunity to be a leader. You give people small projects and you teach them and you groom them and you believe in them. And that's something that we're missing, I think, in the cybersecurity field. We don't have a lot of mentorship and internship programs. That should be more in the commercial side. We see a lot more of it in DoD because we're bleeding people over to the commercial side, but don't be afraid to invest in those people. Again, water them. Yeah, a teacher. You're right, Kevin. If you have experience, if you worked in the classroom because you're a teacher, Apple has a great program where they take former teachers and they make them Apple Genius Store people. It's just training and taking the time. And I think that that's something that we're missing in cybersecurity. We want that now button. We want it fixed now. We want trained people now. Standing up nonprofits and having these cyber degree programs isn't going to answer the mail right now. Maybe in 2 to 3 years, we'll start seeing the fruits of our labor, but we want that now. And that just doesn't resonate for me. I see a lot of people who are inexperienced, sitting in senior positions, and then we're shocked when we have a breach. We saw it with the Tampa water facility. We've seen it with some other healthcare breaches where they had a degree, but they didn't have any relevant experience. Are there any other questions? Is there anything else? You can ask me anything. I won't tell any dirty jokes, I promise, Chris. I promised Aaron I would behave. No, Aaron, I won't tell any dirty jokes, I promise.
What have you done wrong in your career that you'd want to share with others?
I was a rice bowl person when I started out, believe it or not. I believed wrongly that if I shared what I knew with people, that the organization would replace me. And that was the wrong mentality. It wasn't until I got cancer that I realized, I did something wrong. My boss crawled under my desk with me and he said, "Who did you train so that they can step in for you so you can go home and get better?" And I thought he was trying to replace me. And I explained that I didn't train anyone because I felt like then you wouldn't need me anymore. And he said, "That's the wrong mentality. You are worth more to an organization when you grow and when you share what you know." So I think for me, that was my biggest mistake. people who knew me before cancer knew a different version of Angelique than post-cancer. After that, after I beat it, I said that my job, my mission, why I stayed alive was to train as many people and share whatever I had in my little head that I haven't died the crap out of yet, and share the skills, share everything. I think that was just an old school mentality of I was a rice bowl, I was a gatekeeper, and I didn't want to let anyone into my playground. And I regret that. And I've gone back to a lot of people that I know I pissed off and that potentially were hurt, you know, in their career because I wasn't willing to grow them. And I've apologized and I've offered, how can I make that up? What can I do different? You're right, Kevin, we don't ask for help. But for me, I think I was a gatekeeper and I changed my mentality because I wanted to get into a job and I got told that I didn't have enough experience. You can't be an executive at 30. You can't be an executive at 40 because you didn't have those years of experience, which wasn't true. And I didn't like when the shoe was on the other foot. So I think for me, that's been one of my biggest regrets, was that I was a gatekeeper, but I've changed. I always ask if there's room to be in training. Yes, always ask someone if there's someone in the organization. Chaudhry, I think that's a great question. If there's someone senior in your organization that you respect and they're in IT or they're in cyber, even if they're in management, don't be afraid to ask, would you mentor me? Can you give me some tips on how I can get to your level, or how can I advance? Is there training in whatever interests you? Organizations, I think, are starting to come around slowly on investing in their people, but don't be afraid to ask for further training. Are there any other questions? Alex, yes, I don't mind sharing, Alex. I'm an open book, and I think that we're not perfect as managers or executives or even IT folks. So don't be afraid to make your mistakes. You learn from them. Anyone who's never made a mistake has never been successful, or they're not ready to be successful, in my opinion.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Angelique, for sharing everything about your journey and all the tips and tricks. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me. And thank you, everyone. If you're looking to connect, you can find me on LinkedIn under Angelique Q Napolean. Thank you.